and then we'll go on from there. Ray, are we now
And we are live on Facebook and YouTube now.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we want to welcome everyone to this very special webinar that we have today on the importance of an independent judiciary. As you know, the Kectil Program is really focused on youth development, and it's one of my beliefs, and I think will be borne out today, that having a strong and independent judiciary is very important to youth development. And it's important to the functioning of a federal government in general, which in turn is important to the youth's ability to become a success, have education, and to be mentally and physically healthy, and to have the proper functioning of the government. I've been thinking about this webinar for a very long time, and I had in mind who I was hoping would be able to speak to these issues. And we are very, very blessed to have an esteemed panel today that we're going to be talking with. We have two very senior, highly respected judges in the United States. Then we have a very senior advocate from India who's going to be speaking with us. And we are also going to be hearing from the president of the Kenyan Law Society. This program is being live streamed on both the Kectil YouTube channel as well as our Kectil Facebook. So please keep in mind that everything you say is publicly available in real time. So this is not a private conference. This is a public conference. Okay. So don't say anything that you wouldn't want heard on Facebook or on YouTube. Okay. So Ray is here from Myanmar. He's helping me with the IT issues. Ray, has Faith joined us yet?
No, I haven't seen Faith yet.
Okay. So I'm just going to start with a short introduction. Then we're going to hope that Faith gets here soon, and if not, we'll go on with the program, and then we'll break for her when she arrives. So as I said, this conference and this webinar has been on my mind for actually several years, because I really want to talk about how the judicial system is central to a healthy working government. And if you're lucky enough to live in a country that has an independent, unbiased, well-functioning judiciary, first of all, you're very lucky. And second of all, you can't imagine what it would be like to live without that system. You don't know what the world would be like, what your life would be like. And then in contrast, if you live in a country that does not have an independent, unbiased judiciary, it's hard to understand what it would be like to be in a system that does have one. So we wanted to get a number of people in the room who have different perspectives, come from different countries, have different issues, and have different perspectives on the judicial system. All of you who know, I am, of course, the founder of the Kectil Program. I'm Sherry Knowles. I'm speaking to you today from Atlanta in the United States. I am a lawyer. I love the law. I love the practice of law. I love the philosophy of law, thinking about law. And I also think that law is a great antidote. A well-run law is a great antidote to a healthy society. And so it's going to be a very, very interesting discussion today. And we have youth who are coming in now from all over the world. I see one just coming in from Nepal, as far away as Nepal. And so we want to welcome every one of you who've come to be on this very, very important webinar by Kectil today. So the way we're going to run this webinar is we have 4 very esteemed, highly respected people who work in the judicial system, either as judges or as advocates or as representatives. And we're going to hear from them first. Then after that, we are going to hear from several Kectil colleagues who have agreed to talk about the judicial system in their countries. And then we're going to open it up to comments, questions, conversation from the attendees. We have promised our first speaker, Faith Odomo, that she would be the first speaker. I think we're still waiting for her to come in, and I'm waiting for Ray to tell me whether she's here or not. And
No,
she
she's
is
not here. Yeah.
And we'll say that right now there are a lot of issues going on in the country of Kenya, which is in Eastern Africa. There are protests going on about a new finance bill, which has been introduced by the president, and it is very controversial. In fact, it takes money away from the judiciary, gives it to the executive branch. There's been some transfer of judges away from the constitutional courts and into other courts. There's been an increase in taxation, and there's been other things which many of the youth in Kenya think are disadvantageous to youth in that country. I'm going to let Faith discuss that when she gets here, but she is actually could be at the protest. She's going to come and talk to us, and then is going to go back. But until she arrives, we're going to go ahead with our program, and we're going to talk about, in general, what role does the judiciary play in a healthy government? Okay, some of the Kectil colleagues come from different levels of knowledge, perspective about the government system in general. So I'm first going to introduce the Honorable Kenneth Crispin. You can wave, he's here with us today. He served as a Superior Court judge from 2008 to 2018 in the state of New Jersey, which is in the United States. For 8 years, he was the presiding judge of the Civil Division of the Superior Court and the conference chair for all civil presiding judges in New Jersey. He practiced law for 35 years before becoming a judge, and now he's a senior arbitrator and mediator in a range of disputes. So he's been involved and deeply immersed in the legal system, both as a lawyer as well as a judge. And I wanted to invite him here to hear his perspectives on the judicial system generally, and how it does work and how it should work, and whether you think that I'm correct that a healthy judicial system is an antidote to many issues in the government.
Good morning. Thank you, Sherry. Good morning, Dr. Reddy and Judge Rader. So nice to see you, Dr. Reddy again, and nice to meet you, Dr. Rader. And good morning, everyone, this morning for us here in the United States. So as Sherry said, I was a judge for a little over 10 years. And I will tell you that when I was appointed, or shortly before I was appointed, I met with my hero in the law. He's deceased now, but he was, I thought, the smartest judge I ever came across and one of the best people I ever met. And he said to me and gave me some words of advice. And he said, Ken, this is the best job in the world, because all you have to do is come into work every morning and make sure that you do the right thing. And he was absolutely correct about that. And the reason I could do that is because in the United States, thank God, we do not worry about the decisions that we make. Sometimes they're unpopular. Sometimes they're in favor of the little litigant, meaning the smaller litigant, against the big company. Sometimes it's the other way around. But we are not, and there may be some exceptions, but we are not generally concerned about public opinion or about the fact that this may have deleterious or not good consequences to some of the litigants, as long as you sit there and apply the facts as you found them, and you have no problem with assessing the credibility of folks and the law as you know it. So in the United States, for the most part, all 50 states have trial courts, appellate sections, and then a Supreme Court. So I was a member of the trial court. I decided all sorts of civil disputes, that is, personal injury, contract. I was the environmental judge. I sat on large cases involving the Exxon Corporation. I sat on cases where people were alleging professional negligence against some very, very capable engineers, physicians, other lawyers, and other professionals. Those cases had serious consequences, and they were very, very serious and very heavily litigated cases. Not once did I ever worry about what was going to be said. And we relied on the courts in New Jersey and all of the other 50 states of the Union to make decisions with regard to our citizens. And that's where personal disputes are heard. People with no money whatsoever can come into court and challenge the biggest corporations in the United States. People with tremendous amount of money can come in. It makes not one iota of difference who the litigants are. In a good, fair court system, they all get a fair shot to be heard, and heard impartially, and have a decision rendered based on the facts and the law. It does not matter what political party you are from. It does not matter what economic strata you are from. And we have we're blessed to be able to do those. There is a civil division, a criminal division, and a family law division, generally among the states. And those judges each make decisions based upon that. Sometimes they make the wrong decisions, but they don't make the wrong decisions generally because they favor one person over another person, or they favor one party over another kind of political party. And in those cases, we have, if you are aggrieved by the dispute, if you lost at the trial level, you can appeal, and there are appellate courts in, I think, 42 out of the 50 states, to an appellate division who is an independent, separate panel who looks at the evidence, looks at the trial transcript, and either upholds the trial judge's decision or reverses the trial judge's decision, and most times sends it back to a trial court to redecide the matter. If you don't like the appellate division's decision, you may apply to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will either choose to take that case, meaning choose to review that case, or choose to deny review on that case. And the Supreme Court has no problem, if necessary, to reverse the appellate division and reinstate the trial judge's decision, or agree with the appellate division and make that the law of the case, and then that's it. It is so important to our economy that commercial decisions can be made promptly and fairly, of course. So if you have a contract with someone, if you have a lease for your home, if you buy a product that doesn't work, and the product is manufactured by a huge company, you can take that company into court and be heard fairly. And it doesn't matter that the company employs hundreds of thousands of people, or that they have tremendous amount of money and they may give money to a political candidate or whatever. It's completely irrelevant. And so it gives a great degree of comfort to people doing business. And in the criminal realm, it gives a great degree of comfort, especially in the criminal realm, to someone who's charged with a crime, and that he or she can be heard. He or she can have an independent jury who comes in and collectively decides guilt or innocence based upon the facts and based upon the law that's given to them by the trial judge. So from an overall well-being and a feeling of well-being, the independent judiciary assures every single person, the entire populace, that there's somewhere that they can get a fair shake. There's somewhere, it doesn't matter how much money they have. It doesn't matter what political party they belong to. It doesn't matter about the fact that they may not have popular political opinions. They can go to the courthouse, safe spot. They will be heard, and everything flows from that. We have a constitution. We abide by the Constitution. Sometimes we stub our toes and sometimes we make mistakes, but those mistakes can be corrected by higher courts, and ultimately they get to the right decision. And the best part about it also is, although sometimes it's been a little bit ramped up these days, you can have people who have different opinions still be friends. My mentor judge, who I loved and respected immensely, sometimes I didn't agree with his decisions, and we would have a spirited discussion as to why I didn't disagree. It was very rare, but it wasn't, and we were the best of friends until the day he died. So, and that's the way it's supposed to be, I think. That is the way I'd like to think it is, for the most part, here in the United States. And it is a goal that's well worth striving for in your countries as well. Thank you, Sherry.
Well, thank you, Ken. And Judge Grispen, and I've got some follow-up questions for you, but I do see that Faith has joined us now. I know she has some time constraints, so thank you for your comments. And I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Faith Odhiambo, who is joining us from Kenya. She is the 51st president of the Law Society of Kenya. She is only the second female to ever hold this office, so congratulations to you for that. She's in the top 50 women in law in Kenya, in the top 100 arbitrators in Kenya, partner with the firm of Ombach and Auer in Nairobi, where she specializes in corporate competition and telecom law. She's also a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. Faith, I understand there are a lot of things going on in Kenya right now. So, and they're central to our discussion today of what does it mean to have an independent judiciary, and how should we be respecting the judiciary? How should it stay funded? And how should we let it do its job? We know you're in the hotbed right now. Can you get us up to speed on what's happening in Kenya? Oh, you're on mute. She's on mute right now. Yeah. Okay.
You can hear me?
Yes, now. Yes, thank you.
First, to just say thank you for inviting me to this program, the Kectil. The current situation that we're having in Kenya is a bit of an overall by the young Generation Z, with regards to the current political affairs in our country. We were going through review of the current budget and the new finance bill to be able to meet that budget. So a lot of our young ones are quite angry, and rightfully so, with regards to how is the government utilizing funds, a lot of corruption and accountability, and yet taxes are weighed heavy instead of proper use of the funds that they have, and holding people accountable when there's misuse of funds. So the anger in the country right now, and we've been having demonstrations. On Tuesday, we had quite a number of demonstrations. On Thursday, it was almost a standstill as a number of youth were trying to make their way to Parliament to raise their concerns against what's happening in our country and against the members of Parliament voting for the Finance Bill 2024. And as things heat up, they have become more aggressive, bigger interventions, and Tuesday is going to be quite a bit. And so when one of the members disappear, there's been a bit of hue and cry with regards to the state of, let's say, the state of politics and the kind of behavior of police. We lost so far 3 young people were shot and killed. And one was hurt by the police, and he eventually succumbed to his injuries. And so it's a somber mood, but an angry mood as well. So there's a lot of calls for accountability, transparency, to fight corruption and hold those who come into government offices accountable, that they are not happy to see people who got in and they didn't have much, all of a sudden they've only been in office for 2 years and they are pouring in wealth, yet some are living in abject poverty. So that is the kind of mood that we're going through currently.
How does the finance bill affect the judiciary? I'd heard that under the new finance bill that money is being taken away from the judiciary.
Exactly. The challenge that we keep having in this country is that only in the judiciary does the Constitution provide that there should be a judicial fund, it was set up for the purposes of independence and to maintain the independence and integrity of the judiciary. Because over years and over time, what we have seen in previous governments is that whenever judiciary issue pronouncements against the government, stopping unconstitutional conduct by the government and arbitrary acts, what we have seen is that they keep reducing. Now, in the last parliament, it was even proposed that judiciary should be given at least 10% of the budget. But this year, they're only getting 2 billion, which is 0.002% of the budget. And so there's a systematic aim to try and either strangle the judiciary, that they're not able to meet the work that they have been set to serve members of the public and not be able to do their work, because the judiciary now in almost a space of begging government to be able to fund the work of the judiciary, because we have even certain tribunal sittings cannot be had because there's no adequate funding. So unless NGOs come in to support the work that the judiciary has, even recently we had a killing of one of the magistrates, and because they were sitting in makeshift tents to offer justice, because there's inadequate infrastructure. So the actual reality is that there's a great frustration to ensure that the only way they can control the judiciary is cripple them financially, so that if the head of the judiciary, the Chief Justice, has to come begging for money, then at least they can hold some strings to pull the judiciary down if they feel that the judiciary is too independent, I would say.
Wow. It's almost hard to respond to that by just taking away all their funding. I also understand that there's been a transfer of some of the stronger judges who are on the Constitutional Court onto other courts. Can you talk about the transfer of judges among the courts?
Well, what the courts normally do is that there are generally transfers that happen within the year after you've sat in a particular court for a certain period of time. It's also to avoid elements of corruption. So while some may find it that it's done purposively to strangle. But we still have some proactive judges. It's just that we don't have enough judges in the Constitutional Court. In Kenya, the Constitutional and Human Rights Court remains the court that is most progressive. You'll find very progressive decisions against, and mostly, unfortunately, it's against the government when they try to infringe the rights of citizens and when they're unconstitutional. So that court is normally the most progressive, but doesn't bar people from filing suits where the other judges have been moved. But indeed, we have had proactive judges, like we miss one, Justice Odunga, though he was promoted to the Court of Appeal. And so they were a set of judges that were known to be the cream of the crop, that had the first BBI case in Kenya, and gave a very strong message even to the head of state then, that he was not absolute and the courts will stand in for the people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that certain judges played a big role in one of the previous presidential elections in Kenya. Can you comment on that situation and reflect on that, especially in light of what's happening now?
Well, the situation that we have in terms of the Supreme Court judges, I would say that in our country, Supreme Court judges, some may have some respect. We respect certain judges in the Supreme Court, but some are shunned by members of the public because there's that element of feeling of there was either bias or corruption. And, when people are talking and they feel that these decisions that come out from the courts are not by exercising their independent minds, but by virtue of corruption, it creates a certain anger within. And, the kind of message that we've been trying to have to the judiciary is that if they don't exercise independence, then people will go back to that. It was the 2008, I think, situation. People will go back to the streets if they feel the courts cannot be their haven and that the courts cannot determine disputes with fairness and integrity. Then people will opt to go to and fight and start killing. An unfortunate event that we had during after our election. And even if you remember, one of the opposition leader even said they were going to do a march to the Supreme Court. And the win for the president was 50+1. So meaning about 49% of Kenyans were standing with the opposition leader. So that would have brought total anarchy if that would have happened, because it would have eroded any confidence at all. So the problem that we have is there was that feeling of corruption or bias.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the right step forward is? What are your suggestions?
I would say this. I feel like in our courts they've become a bit comfortable, and as the law society we are thinking about how to bring to book certain magistrates or judges that have compromised their oath of office and integrity. We are happy that one of the High Court judges that was brought forward with a stark number of cases against him. He went through the judicial service system. He went through a trial and confirmed by the president and the Supreme Court. So he's out of office, and it's high time we have a few more to remove the bad apples from the rest of the crop. That will bring back confidence to the members of the public. And we need also to remind judges of the importance and the the position they have in the society, because they are the only arm that is sitting between total anarchy in the country. Because when people feel the ruling class are not listening, then they either have the courts to come and raise any legal disputes, or they believe that they can solve their concerns themselves and go to the streets. So for me, my way forward would be that it's high time our courts were reminded of their oath of office. It's high time the Chief Justice took more seriously reports of corruption and bias by any of judicial officers. It's not to mean that you'd be attacking judicial officers, but to have that stem of integrity is maintained, that anyone knows they are found of a corruption case, they will be put through the disciplinary process. It will be properly investigated, and this will be tabled to the entire public, so that everyone builds back that confidence to know that in this judiciary they can have faith in.
And then it also sounds like you need a more guaranteed source of funding so that the executive branch, because it sounds like there are several things going on. They have a judicial branch in which you're saying that there is some corruption, some bias, and that's adversely affecting the faith in the judicial system by the people as a whole. And then you have the executive branch who has decided to reduce the funding of the courts, not due to corruption or misdeeds, but due to their own power, because they want the power in the executive branch. So you have two separate things going on at the same time, it sounds like. And that's very complicated. And it could be that, you know, the Kectil program is here to support youth development. And sometimes youth get frustrated and they don't really know why they're frustrated. They just know the system is wrong and it's not working for them. And that the, you know, if you see that the people who are making the most money in the country are the government officials, you know that there's a problem with that. And that then the adults are not acting as good mentors, and the system needs to be changed. But we have many youth from Kenya. In fact, Kenya was the very first country that joined the Kectil program. And we have wonderful youth. We have 2 board members from Kenya on the Kectil program. We cherish our relationship with Kenya. And we, you know, we want to get the voice out. We want to get the message out, which is a well-informed message of what the issues are, because these sound like several issues and they need to be handled separately. And so we have a number of youth on the phone and on the Zoom call today. What's your message to the Kectil youth who are listening to this? And we're both on Zoom, we're on Facebook Live, and we're on YouTube. So you have a chance here to speak directly to the youth of Kenya.
So to the youth out there, and I know many of you will be joining the protests, what I want to tell you is that don't lose hope and don't lose faith, because there are other avenues. If you feel you're not heard, when you raise your voice, demand those in power that they must come and sit and listen to you. And secondly, we still have our courts that as the Law Society will hold them in check and will hold them accountable. But at the same time, you have the opportunity to organize yourselves, set in place what you'd want to raise as the concerns, and we table them formidably in court. We will support you, we'll work with you, and you should not be talked at, you should be talked to. And we listen to your voice and we'll be supporting you all the way. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And we also want to tell them, please stay safe. Don't go into a situation that looks like it's escalating quickly and that they could be a casualty. And that goes for you also. We hope that you make sure that you're safe, that you voice your view, and that you help this very difficult problem, but stay safe at the same time. Kenya is very lucky to have you. So thank you for joining us today. I know you have time sensitivity due to the protest, due to what's going on, and there are many people that you need to be speaking with. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Later, we're going to hear from 2 of the Kenyan youth leaders and board members who are with us today, Guguni and Lennox, Guguni Niabati, Lennox Omandi, who will be further talking about the issues and, as you said, are part of the protest. So we'll be hearing more about that. But thank you. You know, you made a very good point, and I'll leave it with this, that you said the court is a way of keeping the peace, because if the people in the country have faith in the judicial system and have faith that they can go to court and they can be heard in a unbiased way, that allows the citizens of the country to be peaceful and to have business to be organized and the government to be working smoothly. So again, we see this essential role of a well-functioning judiciary in a well-functioning country. So thank you for everything you do. We're very proud of you. Thank you for being part of the Kectil program today. And please stay with us as long as you like, but also we understand that you have other things and you may need to leave and attend to these things that are going on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I remind them, stay safe and stay alive.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. Now we're going to go to our Honorable Judge Rader, who I have been pleased to be associated with probably for over 15 years now. It's been a very long time, and it's wonderful to see you again. Judge Rader is the former Chief Judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. That is the court that's right below the U.S. Supreme Court in the United States, and it listens to issues of intellectual property as well as certain federal issues and lawsuits against the government. And so we can hear about that also. He's also a professor of law at George Washington University, also at Georgetown. He's taught at Virginia. He is a very valued part of the Munich IP Law Center, and he's also spoken and is very involved with Tsinghua University in Beijing. So he's quite international. Judge Rader and I also had the pleasure of speaking and actually helping to moderate a major conference in South Africa, on the Conference on Accelerating IP and Innovation in South Africa. We had a wonderful time in Cape Town, South Africa, beautiful, beautiful city in 2011. His wisdom to the people in South Africa about the judicial system, about intellectual property and how to support innovation was very, very well received. In addition, Judge Rader has served as chief counsel to the subcommittee on the U.S. Constitution of the U.S. Senate from 1981 to 1986, and longtime counsel to Orrin Hatch. So with that, I will turn it over for your words of wisdom, Judge Rader.
Thank you very much, Ms. Knowles. And I remember with the same enthusiasm all the events that you describe. They're important. This is an important event, and I'm very pleased to be part of it. Let me start by telling how much I'm moved by some of the things I've heard about the efforts to achieve an independent judiciary in other countries. It makes me very grateful to have been a judge in the United States, where we're governed by a constitution that gives profound protection to individual rights and liberty. And indeed, that constitution, the first constitution in the world, by the way, comes from one of the younger nations in the world, ours, and we're quite proud of what it has achieved. All nations today have constitutions, but it started with us. Let me comment a little bit about the judiciary and the role of the judiciary, Ms. Knowles. Let me start with maybe the most important point. A judiciary must be independent. And independence has a very simple definition. It means the judiciary can act independent of the influence of the government. In fact, it's very often the role of the judiciary to check the government, to tell the government it cannot do things, that the government must obey the law and the Constitution as well. And so the judiciary has the important role of ensuring that the law and the individual liberties that you find enshrined in the Constitution actually have effect. Now, that happens through court cases where an individual or a corporation or a group of people can come to the court and present their concern that they have not been treated according to the law, that their individual rights may have been compromised. And the court has the role of listening to that and reaching a decision that upholds the law and ensures that the government follows the rules as well as the citizens.
He would keep that on mute. You can keep talking.
Well, let me go on to comment on one other thing. So to get to the point, independence means the ability to rule against the government and to tell the government what it cannot do and then be able to enforce that. And indeed, that is the definition of an independent judiciary. The challenge for an independent judiciary often comes when there are decisions involving political questions. Now, the courts should endeavor to remain outside the political sphere. We're not a political branch. We're not from one party or another party, and it's not our job to dictate political outcomes. Those are left to elections and decisions in the political branches. And so we don't get involved in politics except in those rare circumstances where we have to make sure everybody's playing by the rules. And so there are occasional questions of whether there was fairness in the way a political decision was made. But that's a very rare circumstance, and actually it strengthens the independent judiciary to refrain from being involved in political affairs. Judge Crispin gave such a fine presentation a moment ago about the trial courts, and I was a trial judge myself before I was an appellate judge, and indeed I continued to sit as a trial judge throughout my tenure as an appellate judge. That's perhaps the most important position in the judiciary, the position Judge Crispin holds, because he's the person that the people come to and present their concerns that the law has not been followed. Now, I spent most of my time on an appellate court, which is a different role in the judiciary. It's not a higher role, it's a different role. The role of the appellate court is to hear appeals from the trial courts. It gives additional confidence in the judiciary because if you have a concern that the trial judge may not have properly heard all the issues, you have a chance to go to a different court, and that court has the role of rehearing the case. Now, actually, I always like to explain that there are different kinds of appellate courts according to your legal system. I'm guessing that most of you who are listening are in a civil law system. One of the courses I teach at my universities is about the difference between the civil law and the common law systems. In a civil law system, where most of you are, an appellate court rehears the entire case. Now, usually they don't rehear all the details. They tend to focus on a rehearing of the major points, but they retry the case. They can rehear witnesses. They can call new witnesses. This does not happen in a common law court, where the role of the appellate court is just to correct errors. And so in a common law appellate court, such as where I served, the proceedings are shorter. Our appeals from cases that may have lasted 3 weeks only took less than an hour. Each side just had 20 minutes or so. But this works well in a common law system where the court is just looking for one reversible error, one reason to rehear the case or to reach a different judgment. And so in a common law appeal, the parties are usually just discussing one issue that they think is the most important error that may have been made by the lower court. In civil law countries, of course, you're rehearing major portions of the entire case. The appellate proceedings are longer, often taking several hours or even days. And that rehearing is examining all the issues, not just the one error that needs to be examined and perhaps corrected. Let me comment just again briefly about the defense of liberties. Our job, our most fundamental job, is to make sure that the rights of individuals and citizens are protected, particularly against government intervention and government mistakes. It's a tragic reality of history that most frequently the rights of individuals are deprived by their own governments. And so you have to have a place to go to prevent that. That is the role of the judiciary. And our most fundamental role is to know those individual rights and to recognize situations that indicate the government is not being responsive to the legal protections that are owed to individuals. I could comment a lot more on, I've had the chance to teach in many countries. I'm still on the faculty in China. They have a little different judicial system there, where the judges are considered a part of the government. And it is their duty in their system to uphold the government policy. And that gives the courts a particular challenge in correcting government overreaching. But again, I have high respect for the Chinese judges and their competence, and have observed that they will hear individual concerns that the law is not being followed. I've also taught and just returned the day before yesterday from Germany. The courts there are civil law courts, as we have discussed. There's a little different procedural approach to cases. But once again, the judges there are devoted to learning the law, knowing the law, and enforcing the law to the benefit of individuals. And I have great respect for their capabilities. Just because you happen to mention it, Ms. Knowles, that I work for Congress, let me say, Congress has the role to understand and follow the Constitution as well. And when I served for the Senate, I can remember times when the majority leader of the Senate, that's the senior most governing senator, called me, a junior attorney, and asked me what the Constitution required with respect to a bill that was being considered. And I would give him legal advice. The reason I mention that is that, notice, those senators too were trying to follow the Constitution. It's the duty of every officer to follow the Constitution. Now, judges have a specific role to hear cases from individuals about protecting constitutional rights, but all of the government officials understand that their authority comes from the people, and the people have given them that power through the Constitution, and they have to follow that document in order to be legitimate government servants and servants of the people. Well, maybe that's enough of an introduction, Ms. Knowles. Let me just say one more thing that just is important to me. All of you that are listening will probably say, well, I'm not a judge, I'm not a senator. All of this is theory that doesn't apply to me as much. This is where education comes in. And I teach at Tsinghua, I teach at George Washington. And you have an obligation as citizens to learn the law and to learn your rights and to learn the way to, in an orderly fashion and a peaceful fashion, seek redress of those rights. So I would encourage all of you to take courses on the law, learn your legal rights, learn how to enforce them. Demonstrations are important, but it's more important to know how to go to the court, how to present your petition asking the government to follow its own rules. So I'd encourage all of you to learn the law. I hope I see some of you in some of my classes. Thank you, Ms. Knowles.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I could just listen to you talk about the law all day long. It's a wonderful inspiration. you've worn just about every hat possible, so you've seen it from every angle, and you've been a wonderful gift to the legal system in the United States as well as globally, and we thank you. And you've always been very willing to use your time to help youth around the world, both in terms of conferences that we've spoken at, in terms of traveling excessively to talk with people about the law. I know you're a great advocate, and that's why we wanted to have you here today. And you didn't disappoint. You didn't.
Thank you. Thank you.
So wonderful. And then I hope that you'll be able to stay on and listen to some of the comments from our colleagues who are going to be speaking today, including some of our Kectil colleagues from the board. So that's been fantastic. And now we'd like to turn to Dr. Reddy, and he's also a wonderful advocate for the law. And we're going to another part of the world. We're now going to India to hear about the judicial system in India. Dr. Reddy is a managing partner of RVR Associates in Hyderabad. I had the pleasure of speaking with him on a major panel at the World IP Forum in India just in January of this year about all kinds of issues which are central to the judicial system in both India and in other countries. Dr. Reddy focuses on intellectual property, on constitutional law, on mines and geology, civil and criminal law. He has been an advocate in the high courts as well as the Supreme Court of India. He's a guest lecturer in many universities, chemical engineer by initial training, and maybe most interesting to some of you, for 18 years, he was an air warrior with the Indian Air Force. So that was pretty interesting to wear that hat for a while. And he's also very involved and interested in international global intellectual property as well as just legal affairs generally. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Reddy to get your wisdom. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sherry, for a nice introduction. And first of all, let me thank Sherry for making this and the part of this event. And I myself and Sherry and of course Judge Randall Ryder, we often meet in the other conferences in the intellectual property rights, and nice for having introduced you to Judge Kenneth Crispin. And also one of my another co-speaker, and she has left it, and of course on the mission led in Kenya is in there with regard to the finance bill. And first of all, let me congratulate for Sherry for conducting this wonderful program of the Kectil, and especially the concept of youth transformation. And this is really a wonderful topic because what I personally feel, because we are all equally almost 2 judges and 3 lawyers on the panel, and judges have spoken there how the independent judiciary, and most it should be unbiased. And coming to the point of Indian side, and we are really fortunate because it's a democratic country, everybody is aware of it. And we've got a 3 hierarchical system of the judiciary. This is district courts, high courts, and constitutional courts. And as rightly said by Justice Ryder, is that
most of the
Everybody needs to go on.
and trial court mostly looks about the interstate disputes among the parties in the individual citizens of the country, but High Court and Supreme Court mostly look into the constitutional matters. When we say the constitutional matters, we are all binding. It's like the Constitution is treated as a holy book, like it's a Quran or Bible or Bhagavad Gita. All people who are binding on this Constitution, if the judges who are being elevated as the judges from either from the advocates or lower judiciary, and we are all working the framework of the Constitution. And we have got the federal system of the government, state governments and central governments. And as per the Constitution, state has got some of the powers to make their own laws with regard to some of the subjects, and central government has also got the powers to make the laws with regard to the protection of the country in the central government. Now the question is, now in India, the robust system we have got, it is that the judicial review and judicial activism of the courts, the legislature's competency is being tested by virtue of the testing in a court of law. There are many laws which are made by the parliament has been struck down, rather I say has been challenged in the court of law in the Supreme Court, and we have got a wonderful judgments of like one of the whole concept of the judiciary is the basic structure of the constitution. One of the famous case law of the Golaknath case in India, where the judiciary has got the powers to review the laws made by the parliamentarians, and the parliaments can't make any law beyond the constitution unless it is, as long as it is safeguarding the basic structure of the constitution. And there's one issue. Now coming to the point, unbiased. The whole study goes on because I'm really appreciate this kind of programs will kindly educated all through the world, including the judiciary and the advocate fraternity, and more specifically youth. What exactly today, what is happening in the Kenya, it was the discussion. That is one of the major important aspect, financial autonomy. As long as the judiciary is not giving the financial autonomy to make their own financial expenditure, not depending upon the politicians or the government, then that would one of the most important aspect, the unbiased judiciary. And the unbiased judiciary could only happen when the judges who are being elevated from the advocates or the judicial fraternity, that irrespective of the caste, creed, and so many other things. And more importantly, India has got something like unity in diversity. We have got different kinds of religions, different kinds of languages, different kinds of sects, and all these points to be taken into consideration while the appointment of the judges. And India has got the system of the collegium system of the selection of the judges, and there is no role of the government. Once the collegium recommends particular judge and the particular names are referred to the government of India, government has to consider. If some of the panel judges are referred back for non-consideration, the collegium will relook into that. Then again, the list will be sent to the government. It has so happened because most of the times, whatever the names of the judges are being recommended as per their caliber, whatever, all taking all facts into consideration, as per the judicial, as per the prevailing situation in India. So second aspect is like most of we discuss, because there is a biasing. The biasing happens, it is very well known, because most of the cases of bias is, maybe it is an implicit bias or the confirmation bias or personal experience and values and contextual influences. These facts to be taken into consideration when the particular judge who is given to deal with the judgment on the facts of the case, that has to be interpreted within the framework of the constitution and the law. As long as it goes well, then that particular country will have a perfect judicial activism, because the judges comes out from the different sects of the people and different mentality, different mindset. And I quote the Sherry because, because we are all intellectual property attorneys. I really say, because when we argue a matter with regard to the patent before particular judges, and Justice Rader will agree with me, because the judge may or may not know the science subject, but it has to be learned. See, the role of the judge is very complex, very complicated. He has to understand the subject with regard to within the framework of the constitution. So then, unless this subject is not being understood, so that's how the judge should be a periodic training sessions for the judges to understand each and every subject, at least to the basics. And most important aspect of the judiciary is interpretation of the laws. All of us know, as an advocates, we keep arguing and interpreting, and we are assisting the courts to get a perfect judicial system. And finality is that the most important aspect of the constitution of every country is the protection of the fundamental rights. In India, more specifically, Article 14, Article 19, and Article 21 of the Constitution of India are considered very vital. And these are all articles are mostly dominated most of the times in the judgments which are being given, even the Puttaswamy judgment in India, many other judgments. Article 21, that is right to live with the dignity. None of the person's rights could be taken away, and he has got a right of speech or right of equality and right of employment. These are all facts to be taken into consideration. Now, the aspect with regard to the today's topic, as it is discussed, unbiased and independent judiciary would happen only till particular time. The judges in India were nominated by the interference of the executives and the government. But now it is because of the judicial activism, judges are being recruited from the collegium system, recommendation of the Chief Justice of Supreme Court and Chief Justice of High Court. And that's how there is no role for interference of the judges, at least this part of the world, that making the selection process of the judges. And even in the recent past, there is a specific bill is being passed by the parliament. The Supreme Court did not accept on the point of interference of the government in judicial system. Coming to the second point, now the financial liberty for the what is happening today in Kenya, and what Faith was discussing on this topic. Yes, there should be a financial resources, financial independency to take a decisions with regard to the expenditures involved in the whatever the court processing and all. And judges or court should not depend upon the government for the financial sources. And coming to the other points, because as we are discussing today, and most of the countries, it's really because those are the countries, especially democratic countries. Of course, I'm not talking about the countries which have got the military rule and all those things. And especially, I just discussed about my neighboring countries. I don't name because it's a fact is today the complete judiciary system is failed. And any citizen of any country in the world, the judiciary and the courts are the last straw in their life to have a protection for their rights. If the judiciary is failed, the whole system leads to tyranny. Everyone is a fact because we are seeing many of the countries today in the world, and the robust system of especially because in India, as I'm more concerned about this part of because, and thank you again for Sherry for connecting from east to west and discussing from all through the world about the different countries system and all. And I'm very fortunate today to know very great about the American judicial system by two topmost judges, and my lordships have taken us to a very practical view of this from their experience. But as a lawyer, we feel that because still there are the problems in the selection process, there are comments, there are discussions, much happen. But as an overall, the very robust system India has got today with regard to the protection of the fundamental rights, and we are within the framework of the Constitution. And as long as any country in the world, see nothing but I go a step ahead. Instead of the Constitution, if there are the morals and ethics in the society, no document like even Constitution is required. But once Constitution is being drafted to taking a decision by the citizens as well as judiciary as well as the politicians to work within the framework of the Constitution, as long as the judges are working within the interpretation of the Constitution and taking the decisions, and we are safe in the world. And that's how there should be as rightly said, there should be unbiased and independent judiciary. And with regard to bring it forth, my suggestion to the whole Kectil youth today, that there should be a period, the process of selection of the judges should be perfect. The judges perfect in the sense integrity, knowledge and talent and interpretation of the law should be very perfect. And second issue, there should be periodic courses like this or webinars to at least to understand what is happening all through the world and how to understand how to protect the people of the particular country, any country it could be. Ultimately, the goal of every country is the welfare society and citizen rights to be protected. And with this program, and thank you, Sherry, for giving this nice opportunity. And thank you all my judges, my lordships. I'm very grateful to you for being part with all of you. Thank you so much. And namaste, good evening from my side and good morning to you all at US.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for your words of wisdom. We watch India sometimes from afar, a country with 1.4 billion population, an absolutely enormous size country. It just it dwarfs the United States. I think we're at 300 or 400 million, and you're at 1.4 billion. And it's wonderful to know that your country, and even though it's growing so quickly, which we know it is, the economics are growing quickly. It's becoming more and more successful by the day. We see many international collaborations, and so it's reassuring to know that the Indian judicial system is a judicial system that will support that growing economy, which is so important. And that's another lesson for the youth in developing countries, which is if you want your economy to be able to grow, to be able to attract direct foreign investment, to be able to interact and have contracts with companies around the world, you need to have a court system that these international companies can rely on if there's a problem, if there's a breach of contract, if there's an issue. And the fact that India is growing so quickly and is attracting so much business is really a sign of confidence in your judiciary, I think. And that they think it's a safe place to do business. That's probably one of the biggest compliments of all. And is that you are attracting business, and that people feel that they can go to their country. Now, we're both intellectual property lawyers. Judge Rader is an intellectual property lawyer. We know that there are some differences in approaches to intellectual property, specifically as it pertains to pharmaceuticals in certain countries and in India. I think that may be changing over time. But there's a great debate out there, great honest debate, and that's what these conferences are for. But we want to congratulate you on the success of India as a whole and a burgeoning economy, which you can only have when it's undergirded with a great judicial system. So congratulations on that. And we look forward to your comments as we go to some of the Kectil colleagues next, and then open it up for questions. So on the next portion of this webinar, we're going to hear from some of the Kectil colleagues in various countries around the world, talking about their judicial system and the challenges that youth have in various countries. And just like one of our initial speakers was from Kenya, and there's certainly a lot going on in Kenya. We're going to start out with our Kectil colleague, Hein Het-Tu from Myanmar, who's going to tell us about what's happening in Myanmar and actually what is the status of the judicial system in Myanmar. So Hein Het-Tu, who I refer to as Ray, and feel free to refer to him as Ray if you'd like, will be our next speaker. So Ray, I'm going to send it over to you.
Yep. Thank you very much, Sherry. Appreciate it. And to the panelists, thank you for your time and the wisdom. And to provide you some context, Myanmar is also known as Burma and is the largest country in mainland Southeast Asia, run by the military. So the human rights abuses in our countries are obnoxious. The military has been systematically committing mass atrocities against the civilian, which is always guarded by a judicial system that is designed to protect the military itself. And so we are more than 3 years into the military coup right now, and the junta have been attacking the minority and the majority populations of the Burmese citizens, especially the human rights offenders and activists, and mostly the honest people in the economic or in the social sectors, constantly through various means. And then when they complain, usually they were put into these manufactured judiciary systems designed by the military just for them to create another win. So the result is horrible because after 3 years, right now, nearly 20 million people are in desperate needs of humanitarian assistance, and there's nowhere or no system that they can go through that. And we also have a genocide that happened 5 years ago, and those things are still remain unchecked, and the military is still running the country with all of that. So I've prepared a short video from the United Nations Human Rights Summer Session this year. So the speaker is from the International Bar Association, and she's highlighting that having no independence in the judiciary system is the main reasons of one of the things, all of these things happening in Myanmar. So it's a short video, so I'll play it for you.
Always for Lawyers' Rights Watch Canada by video.
Lawyers' Rights Watch Canada and the International Bar Association's Human Rights Institute deplore the catastrophic deterioration of human rights in Myanmar due to the military junta's systematic commission of atrocities against civilians. Over 3 years into the military coup, the junta has increased attacks on displaced and conflict-affected ethnic and minority populations and on human rights defenders and activists. Mass displacement continues at an alarming rate, with over 2.8 million internally displaced in Myanmar since the coup and nearly 19 million in humanitarian need. Thousands of Rohingya are fleeing from their homes and are increasingly unsafe, only a few years after a military campaign of genocide against them. They are now facing atrocities by the junta and the Arakan army. The primary cause of violations is unchecked impunity of Myanmar's military and laws that violate international law, implemented by courts with no independence, More than 20,500 are unlawfully detained, including over 160 sentenced to death. Torture, ill treatment, and extrajudicial killings are routine, along with denial of adequate legal representation and fair trials. Lawyers face restrictions, threats, prosecution, and arbitrary detention when trying to represent political detainees in unfair closed proceedings. We call on all counsel.
Yeah, so that's a situation in my country, and apparently independence courts systems play a very important role. As she mentioned, the numbers still growing day by day, because right now we have like currently within the next previous 2 weeks we have a huge arrest happening throughout the country as well. So the military have detained over 20,000 innocent civilians, and then they go through these special courts. Like that took like about 30 minutes, and then they would just send them to prisons, which are known for notorious. And these people, over 20,000 people, doesn't have proper legal representation. Fair trial is not a thing for them. And even there are some lawyers within the countries who want to protect their rights and practice law, but they face constant fear. So those are the problems that we're facing right now. I personally have lost family and friends to were in jails and were in these manufactured judicial systems. And some of my friends are still in jail right now for peaceful protests. They've been there for about 3 years now and still struggling to receive proper legal representation. We can reach out to them. We can ask for a trial. And they've been in jail for 3 years with we have literally no information. And on a national scales, the previously democratically elected leader, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate Aung San Suu Kyi, a 70-year-old woman, is currently sitting in jail just for only wanting democracy and standing up together with the people. They give absolutely no reasons, and she'll probably spend the rest of her life in prison as well. So you can imagine about the ordinary citizens facing abuses from these allied authorities. And also, like, if you think about employment, housing, businesses, safeties, and even family matters, all the areas of life, when you go to a court, all the courts are unaccountable and filled with all the misconducts and corruptions. So the part that made me sad is that, when you try to talk to people, even within their families, in your friend circles, to talk about, oh, we need to change the judicial system, or we need to make it, right. They already know that their rights will not be respected, their freedoms will not be protected. And these happen not, this is a generational sufferings. So usually, even when I talk with my friends, like, they'll have they don't care about court system anymore. And then, when you try to talk them about it, there's a pushback and resistance because of these deep-seated sufferings of injustice and inequality. So it's there's still hope. We can still, most of the time we can just hope for the best. But it's just great to hear from the judges and some good practices. But for some countries, the least developed country like us, it is still a long way to go, and it starts from the very basics parts of our lives. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comments, Ray. And so Ray is an activist from Southeast Asia. You're going to be at the UN all next week, right?
Yep.
He is a representative a youth representative who has been acknowledged by the United Nations, and he's been asked to spend an entire week next week at the United Nations talking about situation in Myanmar. I mean, there's nothing we can do today on this phone call about or on the Zoom about the atrocities in Myanmar, but one of the most important things is just knowledge. You don't hear about this on TV, and in a lot of countries, you don't hear about it in the media, but it's happening on a daily basis, and it fits squarely with what we're talking about. If there's an independent judiciary, then there would be more safety and security there, but it's a military regime at the moment. So thank you so much. Thank you for your activism. Thank you for speaking out. He's been on Voice of America. He's been on Democratic Voices of Myanmar, speaking into the country of Myanmar to talk to them about what's going on. And so let's just keep our eye on that. So thank you, Ray. Our next speakers are going to be Guguni Niabadi and Lennox Amandi from Kenya. They're going to give us the youth perspective right now of what's going on in Kenya. Welcome, Guguni. And Guguni is one of the longest standing Kectil colleagues. He was one of the first people who helped us put together the Kectil program, and in the first seat of Kenya. So thank you for joining us, Guguni.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sherry. Thank you, Judge Crispin, Randall, and Dr. Reddy. Really appreciate your comments and your insights on judiciary. So I'm going to take a very short time and hand it over to my colleague, Lennox. And my comments are basically going to be an emphasis on what has majorly been spoken about the role of the rule of law to the economy, the social values, and also to democracy in the context of Kenya. As you're aware, like the president of the Kenyan Law Society has spoken right now, moments ago, that the youth in Kenya are protesting. I was involved in the demonstrations myself last week, and the main reason is that young people are not being heard, and the issues have piled up. It's even coming out to be much more beyond the finance bill on ways government is going to collect money. It's also about the way government is spending that money, and it's about the budgeting process, and even how decisions are being made on how resources are going to be allocated or are going to be spent by government. So I'd like to make comments on the situation of the judicial system in Kenya with regards to the youth. There's a common statement that you'll hear within Kenyan confines, especially when there's a dispute involved and you're supposed to seek a solution from the courts. You'd be told that you'd rather find a solution by yourselves through alternative means rather than going to court. This is because there is less faith in the judicial system for reasons that have been mentioned here. One of the reasons why there isn't so much faith in the judicial system is that there's lots of biasness. And this biasness comes out of the levels of corruption that are there within the judicial systems. So we've had situations where cases have taken so long, a very long amount of time to be decided, majorly because it involves someone at a high level of government, perhaps a politician who has committed an offense, and this decision cannot be reached because they're afraid of their level of status, or they have influence in the judges who are making these decisions. So justice tends to be delayed for years until people give up. Another reason for biasness has been corruption in terms of handing over money or transfer of money. So in Kenya, they say that a person who steals an egg faces longer sentence than a person who steals a chicken. And it's spoken out in very casual means, yet it is a very serious matter, that people who are involved in bigger crimes, especially involving bigger amount serious crimes, get less sentence than people who are involved in petty crimes, majorly because they have financial muscles, especially people who have stolen lots of money. I'm talking about financial resources, cases that involves stealing money. They have money to pay or the powers to. Can you please mute?
Okay.
Thank you. So people who have more money have got the power to influence the direction of justice in the country. And then I want also to point out on on how the rule of law in Kenya influences the development and economic outcomes of the country. And this is with regards to specifically private ownership of property. So we've seen cases where people who own private property their rights have been violated. It has been taken away from them by people who are in power or someone who has much more money than them, and they fail to get justice when they go to court. And this kind of affects how businesses runs, affects how investors invest in the country. And also this kind of prevents opportunities that could have otherwise been available to the population, especially young people, fail to be available because there isn't guarantee of protection of private property and redress of issues in case of conflict in the situation where either someone who is in power or someone who has money tries to take away private property. We've seen situations also within the country where people in power take away public land for private use. So these are situations that are very, very common. We've seen departments in government, especially those ones which have not been so active, like the Kenyan Railway. They have huge chunks of land, and major portions of these lands have been taken away by politicians. So I'm pointing out these specific examples as areas where injustices have been happening, and we've lived, and young people have been seeing this happening, and no one has been standing against them. So the demonstrations that is ongoing right now has been an anger out of the negative consequences that has resulted from all these injustices within the judicial system. And then as I hand over to my colleague, I want also to mention that within Kenya, we have alternative forms of dispute resolution, just like probably other countries, like arbitration and mediation. So another source of alternative form of dispute resolution in Kenya is the customary law. And this one is majorly derived from the traditional practices of African communities in resolving some of the disputes that arise. Sherry is aware about the issue of teenage pregnancy in Kenya and how it has been a thorn in the country, especially amongst young girls in informal settlements and in rural areas. These are an example of some of the disputed cases that have majorly been resolved through the customary law. And to prevent these cases getting to the judiciary, normally the customary law, which involves elders within the villages settling these cases, and they haven't been so effective because some of the decisions that are usually made within the African customary law is marrying of these young girls to older men, which is not really a good decision, which is not something that would be made within the formal court systems. So that is a challenge I'd like to point out. Another form of African customary laws has been on laws on succession and transfer of property. So especially on land cases and land disputes within the customary law. Within this particular form of law, within the succession and land dispute, it has been pretty effective because within the customary law, people have got records and knowledge that has been passed down from generation to the other about ownership of land and inheritance. So the formal court system has had difficulty in making decisions about land and succession, but when it comes to the customary law, it has been easier because of the knowledge being passed down from generation to the other within villages about ownership of these lands and properties. But now when it comes to a foreigner coming to own land within the country, it becomes difficult because a foreigner has no understanding of the customary knowledge that the local people have. So these are kind of some of the dilemmas that we have within our judicial system, kind of harmonizing the African customary laws with the judicial laws, with the common law, which Kenya is operating with. So thank you. I'll close my remarks at that point and hand it back to Sherry so that we can hear from my colleague from Kenya. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kaguni. Is Lennox with us? Is he coming on?
Yes, I think he's on the call.
I think he's on, and we want to make sure we have time for everyone to speak. So, if Lennox can just speak just for a few minutes, or Ray, is Lennox on? Are you putting him in?
Yeah, I don't see him on camera, but I
Okay.
think he is on the call. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Okay, so we will, thank you, Guguni. That gives us a good introduction to what's going on in Kenya. We also heard from Faith about what's happening. So I think that we will now go on to Azim Yusuf from Pakistan. We have a number of colleagues in the Kectil program from both Pakistan as well as Afghanistan. And we probably have over 200 colleagues from Afghanistan in our program this year, of which we're very proud to say almost half of them are females. You will not be hearing from any of our colleagues from Afghanistan today because this is live on YouTube and it's on Facebook, and we protect their security. And even though this is a public venue, it's a safe space for anyone who does not feel like they can even speak up. So I can just say that in Afghanistan, our wonderful Afghan colleagues have been living under Taliban rule since August of 2021. There is no formal court system in Afghanistan anymore other than the Taliban courts, which are under Sharia law. We have a number of females from Afghanistan who we're very proud of, and we're saying we're so grateful that they're part of the program. As some of you may know, there is really gender apartheid going on in Afghanistan right now. The females cannot work, they cannot go to school, they cannot leave their house without permission, they can't even walk around a public park without being accompanied. But yet they can be part of the Kectil program, and we welcome them here. So you will not hear from them today, but that's my comment on what's happening in Afghanistan. With regard to Pakistan, Azim will give us about 10 minutes about Pakistan, and we appreciate your courage in being on this webinar to talk about it. And it's also brave for our youth from Pakistan to come and talk about what's happening and the court system in Pakistan. So I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry, and thank you, everyone. It's a great honor to have our esteemed guests and participants. This is Azim Yusuf from Pakistan, and I'm associated with the Kectil program as an international board member. So thank you for joining this crucial discussion, the importance of an unbiased and independent judiciary. Today, I'm to highlight the critical role of an impartial judiciary in upholding justice, and will use the judicial system of Pakistan as an example of the consequences with this ideal is compromised. So an unbiased and independent judiciary is the pillar of justice. Unfortunately, a dual system of judiciary in Pakistan, which is totally different for powerful and for the powerless. If you are powerful, like you are a politician, you are a bureaucrat, and you are an army official, you have a very swift process. High-profile cases involving these individuals are given priority, with judgments delivered very quickly. So these individuals can manipulate outcomes through their connections, through their power, and leading to cleaning or lenient sentences. But on the other hand, if you are an ordinary citizen, then you will face frequent excessive delays. Case can drag on for years, sometimes even decades, before reaching a conclusion. In some cases, justice is so delayed that the parties involved may not live to see the final verdict. Similarly, the judicial system is often inaccessible to the average person due to its complexity, cost, and the corruption that prevails it. Bribes and favoritism undermine the principle of equal justice under law. So here I'm highlighting two real life examples. The one example belongs to a common citizen, and one is belongs to a ex-Prime Minister of Pakistan, that is Mr. Nawaz Sharif. So for common person, there was a case of a land dispute involving a small farmer. Such cases can remain pending for years with countless adjournment and procedural delays. The farmer, lacking resources and influences, often finds it impossible to expedite the process and may even face intimidation or coercion. And the second one is the ex-prime minister. He is the ex-prime minister of Pakistan, and he went through the Panama cases in 2007 when he was prime minister. In July 2017, the Supreme Court of Pakistan disqualified Nawaz Sharif from holding public office, citing corruption charges. As a result of the Supreme Court decision, Nawaz Sharif was forced to step down as a Prime Minister of Pakistan, and later on, court sent him and her daughter to jail for 10 years. And Nawaz Sharif disqualified from participating any election for a lifetime. But later on, in general election of 2018, Mr. Imran Khan became the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And during that time, Mr. Nawaz Sharif get a bail, medical bail, and leave to United Kingdom for treatment. And almost after 4 years, in 2023, after the dismissal of Imran Khan government, he returned back to Pakistan. And same courts who disqualified Mr. Nawaz Sharif and his daughter gave them clear chit from all cases and make them qualified for the elections. Now Mr. Nawaz Sharif is the member of National Assembly, and his daughter is the chief minister of the biggest province of Pakistan, that is Punjab, and his brother is running Prime Minister of Pakistan. This is clearly indicates that someone is controlling the judiciary and this system of Pakistan. And that someone is definitely establishment and a military. Here I also want to discuss military role in the politics and in the judicial system. The military involvement in Pakistan politics is well documented, and many believe that the military played a role in Imran Khan's dismissal. There is a widespread perception that the military exerts significant influence over civilian political affairs. This perception has led to concerns about the control of democratic processes and institutions in the country. After this, we are not free to speak. We are not free to express our opinion. Today, I'm discussing these things and I'm going live on YouTube and Facebook, and anyone can watch me. And might later on, I or my family will bear some serious consequences to speak the truth. But someone need to take step and initiative to raise the voice against this system and against this bad system. So media outlets have faced pressure, and journalists reporting on sensitive issues have encountered threats and harassment. Even some journalists still faced jail several times and for several months. Many young people are indeed afraid to protest openly due to the risk of arrest and violence. There have been several incidents where protesters were detained, and reports of police and security forces using force to disperse demonstration. So what could be the conclusion and way forward? I think, in my point of view, an unbiased and independent judiciary is not just a theoretical idea. It's a practical necessity for any society aspiring to fairness and justice. Disparities in Pakistan judicial system illustrate the profound consequences of a compromised judiciary. By striving for reforms that ensure equal treatment under the law, we can move towards a system where justice is not a privilege of the powerful, but a right of every citizen. So that's what I want to say. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you. Thank you, Azim. Thank you for your wonderful comments. And Azim in particular was talking about the Panama Papers, and maybe Judge Crispin and Judge Rader may be familiar with this, as well as Dr. Reddy. These were the Panamanian papers that were uncovered maybe around 2018. There were a number of government officials that were keeping very large sums of money in Panama. And these are government officials who are not being paid much money, but they had millions of dollars in Panamanian accounts. And then there was a dump of documents on the internet, and a lot of names were disclosed of who was keeping their money in Panama. And among them was the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Sharif. So Mr. Sharif, and it was extremely broad, deep corruption of taking lots of money from Pakistan. And he was taken out of Pakistan. He was told he could never run for office again. He could never really participate in the Pakistani government. Then the military came in, took out Imran Khan, and decided that Mr. Sharif would be very instrumental to their goals in Pakistan, brought him back to Pakistan and allowed him to take a high public office, and his daughter is now in office, and I guess wiped off all the crimes from the Panama Papers, and he's now an instrument of the Pakistani government, military government. And that's basically, and I know for the judges who are aware of the Panama Papers, then that you'll connect those dots. That's what happened. And that's what the problem is. Thank you, Azim, for your bravery in talking about these issues in Pakistan, and we appreciate your comments. So now we will go to Enbo Khan or Bator from Nigeria. And I know that, we started out this webinar talking about the wonderful aspects of an important judiciary and how well certain governments work, and that is the case, and that is the ideal. And we want to contrast the ideal with some of the issues that our wonderful colleagues in developing countries around the world face, just as a way to have this balanced conversation and way for all of us to be educated on what the ideal is, what the aspiration is, and to have a wonderful, frank, authentic discussion. And that's what we're having today. So now, Dr. Enbo Khan is a medical doctor from Nigeria. She's been involved with the Kectil Program for many years, and she can tell us a little bit about Nigeria. Over to you.
Thank you. And thank you so much, everyone who has spoken, our panelists, are very experienced sharing. Thank you for sharing your experience from both learning, also shared. United States and beyond. Thank you so much for that. And then to my colleagues who have also shared the situations in their various countries, who have also demonstrated an incredible level of bravery today. I want to say thank you for that. For Nigeria, I'll just speak a little. So Nigeria, I believe, this is my opinion, it has a very good judiciary system. It's quite well established. However, it's not without its own challenges. So essentially our governance system has three arms of government. There is the executive, where we have elected people who come into offices and try to solve problems for their communities and their states and the country. We also have the legislature that makes the laws, and then the judiciary. The judiciary essentially will now be the third arm of government that implements the laws, ensure that they're enforced through various systems that are put in place, especially the courts. So since our independence in 1960, I believe that Nigeria has gone through a different periods, right? There are periods where we had very good examples of, good high-level conduct by the judiciary. There are also times where we also experienced the failure of the judiciary. And so today I'll just give brief examples of both so that we can compare and contrast. And then hopefully we can be able to, use our voice to influence, how our judiciary system operates. So, for example, before our democratic era, before 1999, we had a very strong executive arm because it was run by the military. So, because of the fear of being imprisoned, spending many years in incarceration for speaking up or fighting for justice and things like that, there was a lot of suppression of the judiciary. During this time, there were judges that were killed because they tried to speak up, they were trying to enforce the rule of law and things like that. So judges that could be bribed might be bribed, and those who could not be bribed might be taken out of the way by assassinations, and they never get justice for that, which is quite unfortunate. But moving on now to the post democratic era, where we had our first elected president in 1999, and then after that we started to see some examples come up of good judiciary efforts. So, for example, in my state where I was actually born and I grew up for most of my life, there was a time that we had an election for the governor, and there was a particular party that has been in position for power for several years and did not have any meaningful results to show for it, in our opinion. So we thought that we don't need to continue like this. We can actually change this. Because the position, for example, is not anyone's birthright. We could easily change that. So we went to the polls and everyone voted. In my family, for example, my dad ensured that everyone who was of age to be able to vote went out to vote because we wanted to change the narrative that we had, right, in the country. However, when the results got in during the polls, we started to see that the present incumbent governor was going to actually win. And that was kind of a bit odd because by our own calculations, everybody voted for the opposition. We wanted a change. I wanted something different to happen. And, that the results were announced that the incumbent governor was going to continue and that, he had won the election. We didn't kind of think that was correct. So, they went to court of appeal and he actually still won. So we're like, this is awkward. But it's good thing about is that the opposition leader at the time really kind of calmed everybody down and said, let's have faith in the judiciary system. And then we went to the Supreme Court to challenge the election result. And eventually he was declared the governor of the state. Now that was a very joyful moment for everyone because we kind of reinforced faith in the judiciary system. We kind of really showed that our efforts mattered, that if we go out and vote and we all do the right thing, we all play our role, we can actually get results for our efforts that we put in. So that was a very joyful moment. And that was also a landmark event because prior to that time, that party that became the party from which the new governor came from has never won any election before. And what had happened for several years was that one party was controlling the entire state. But that changed because of the power of the judiciary. Of course, that was a high stakes situation because, maybe people will want to, do favors for the governor. They don't want to unseat him because he had already begun his second term before the final judgment from the Supreme Court came on board to, say that he has not won the election and he was to vacate his seat and hand over to the opposition leader. So that kind of really gives us that hope, right? That if our judges and everyone who has a role in the judiciary system do their best, then we'll get the results that we all want, right? That was a good one. But I will also discuss now the latest election that we had in Nigeria. We have also had a president that we felt was not very effective and wanted a change, wanted someone who was a bit younger and a bit more, in touch with what was happening in the country and also, able to support the needs of young people and young leaders in the country, right? So again, wanted to do what we did before, go to the polls, go get, vote our candidates. Of course, people will vote differently, but we kind of felt that at this time, built enough momentum to ensure that if we could topple over, the narrative of having, certain types of leaders, wanted leaders who were visionary and, could kind of move the country to higher levels of greatness. However, it was a different story in this particular time because despite video evidences, people were live streaming on Instagram, on Facebook of, how that, votes were counted in their various polling units. And it kind of seemed that the opposition or one of these other younger presidents was going to probably win the election with all of this evidence that has been collected. When the results came out from the election tribunal, the president who was there before won again. And, the person that we did not expect to win won, which was kind of uncomfortable. So we thought, okay, that's fine. We can then go to judiciary and then, let's challenge this in court. And so everybody remained calm. There was no post-election violence as anticipated. There was no fighting or burning of houses. We trusted the system to deliver to us a good result. Apparently, that did not happen because after that, the court also upheld the results of the election, which we felt was, had widespread irregularities. So in this case, I would say that it's a failure of the judiciary system. I'm not sure exactly what happened behind the scenes. It's possible that there was fear and intimidation, or it can just be pure corruption, where people have decided to, take money, line their pockets, and then just, go with the flow, allow the president who supposedly won the election to continue ruling. So I think I would end my conversation today with a call to action by all of us. We have good examples of when we have won with the judiciary. We have also had examples where, the results that we expected did not quite pan out. But I know that, of course, it does take a lot of bravery for our judiciary, our judiciary staff, our judges, our lawyers, and everyone who works in that system to really take a stand, especially when it's not popular. And then even when your life can be at risk as well. So I really acknowledge all of those factors. But just to also reemphasize that sometimes the life of people, a community or a country in total depends on your decisions and how you make them. So just be encouraged and always continue to stand firm in your beliefs and do your best for the greater good of the country. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Okan. That was a great history lesson of what's been happening in Nigeria. We appreciate it. I've learned a lot from you today. Thank you. Okay, I know we're getting close to the end. It's 11 o'clock. Our speakers have been very patient to listen to all of these eye-opening stories, and we do appreciate it. We have two more short comments from two countries, and then we will I guess call it at the end of the webinar, but all of the youth who want to stay on to have to continue to talk, have questions, make their points heard, I'm happy to stay on after that. But our speaker's been very patient with us for a very long time. So we will go quickly to Ukraine, and then after that we will go to Peru, and then we will call the end of the webinar. But I'll stay on, and the board members will stay on for any additional comments from youth who they would like to make, and they'd like to make comments. Alexandra is our board member from the Ukraine. My goodness, she's a wealth of information about what's been going on there. She lets us realize that, what we hear in the news is never 100% correct. And it's great to have somebody on the ground, boots on the ground, seeing what's going on, having family there, and telling us exactly, really on a week-to-week basis. So what is the role of the judiciary? Is there even a judiciary in the Ukraine now, where there's war in the Ukraine? Do you have a court system, and how's it going there right now? Alexandra.
Yes, we have Sherry, and good day, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about my country and to share the story about what we have and how it's worked before war and after war. And yes, we have a really strong judicial system that we built since we're getting independence in 1991. And Ukraine's judicial system has undergone significant changes. Initially, it retained many Soviet era practices and structures, but sure, we still have some historical challenges about what I will share, some information. However, we are doing many reforms, and we aim to improve efficiency, transparency, and independence of our judiciary system and our court system. And if talking about comparison of the judiciary system during this independence period, I also want to add that despite the fact that there is corruption in my country, that everyone knows about that, there are certain challenges related to the war. We are still trying to build transparency in the work of our courts, and our president and the Supreme Council have a great merit in this. Of course, there are strange laws, but nevertheless, I know one thing. If you know the country's legislation well and understand all the processes, then even in spite of corruption, you can win the courts. And we have, even right now, it's in Ukraine, our young people, they start to learn law system and court system still in school. And after getting to university, they already know their country's law system. They know how to fight for the truth. And right now, during the wartime, our young people, they're fighting for the truth. They're fighting for our independence and land. And they know their rules. They know how it works. And if something went wrong, even during war, if something getting worse for their families, for their friends, or their lives, they know that court system will help them to be protected from something really, really awful. Like during the war, we know that difficult situations can be. So if we break down the judicial system in the 19th of the last century and now, my family, to be honest, had experience working with judges due to the some family circumstances and tragedies. And now society has more trust in the court than it was at the beginning of independence. There is also more changes to win a fair trial because the new generation, those who were born in independent Ukraine, they now come to work in courts and change processes and customs. They refuse to practice in corruption schemes. There is more honesty and openness, but again, it is very difficult for young people to get into such authorities, and there is also an element of corruption. Still, we have it, but we try to fight with that. However, the war in 2022 greatly changed everyone's consciousness, and we saw that since we are not wanted to be like Russia and have the system like in Russia, we have our identity, and we are able to build an independent judicial system, transparent and without corruption. It will take some time for us to do that. But if we talk about judicial system before war in 2022, in that time and until today, we still face some historical issues like corruption that we got from Soviet Union, and the courts in Ukraine have had many problems with corruption, making people lose trust in the system. But we fight with that. Thankful our anti-corruption court that was implemented in 2019. Ukraine established a special court to handle high-level corruption cases, and during the war, during last 3 years, we got historical high level of cases of the corruption. We got a lot of cases that our courts was involved in to resolve these cases, and it was successfully worked. And also, one of the historical issue it is reforms. Despite efforts to fix the system, changes were slow and often resented by powerful groups. Again, it is still related to corruption. But even in 2016, judicial reform, we had one of the huge judicial reforms that restructured the court system and aimed to remove corrupt judges. And after the war in Ukraine was implemented law and the rule that all our judiciaries they must complete a special exam with transparency too. So we have a new level of appointment our courts, and this system is really helpful for building transparency and trust between courts and people. But after war, we got additional challenges that even worse, I would say, because right now it's a bit hard to doing court operations. The war disrupted court operations, especially in conflict zone. Some courts had to close or move to another zone. And right now in the occupied territories, it is a bit, it is hard, it's not a bit, it's hard to handle all judicial system and even help our Ukrainians people who are still there. And also another huge challenge, it is access to justice. Again, for the people who was displacement and for people in the occupied territories. Why for the people who been displacements? Because during the once war started, people from the occupied territory who moved to another Ukrainian territory, they must register again and getting some additional support for the government. But again, for months, it has started to be hard because they help all military soldiers and our military system to fight with the huge terrorist state. So we still have some bureaucracy in that, and the process that must be to continue again and again. And we try to fight with them. We try to work with them, and big thankful for our Western partners and UA countries who help us with all the international support in that way. Because if we talk about even trying to get financial and military aid for that, our Western partners they ask us before getting financial and military support from them, also work with our judicial reforms, because due to corruption there are huge risk just to lose all this money and all this military support from them. And that's why during last 3 years Ukraine has worked a lot with the reformation of our Supreme Court, with our judiciary system overall. And also thankful for that, we getting more trust from the people to the judiciary system. And right now also we still need to work with the challenges of the security during the wartime and independence due to corruption scam that we unfortunately we still have, but less than it was. And again, what I would like to mention that during all the independence periods, if we compare with the first years and the last 3 years, public trust to judiciary system started to be raised. And it is due to because our young generation, they started to learn more about law system, how it's work, and they know the rules, what they can to do, how they can to do, and how the bureaucracy system works. Because in the courts and other authorities, we still have huge bureaucracy. But at the same time, our young people, they implement in different innovations into that system. For example, one of the big innovations that we did, it is application DIA, where right now our people can even in the online to do all the bureaucracy processes, even with getting needed documents for the court, or have to open the business, on how to apply for the court, or different other cases we have. So thankful for the things and these steps that young people are doing for develop our country. We will be successful in few years with the judiciary system. It is my opinion on that, because again, we cannot be sure about the war, how it will escalate or not. It also depends on the international aids and other things. But but our young people,
Alexandra, we may have to stop there, and we're going to hold over for your comments about the Ukraine are obviously well felt and wonderfully accepted. We all watch the situation in Ukraine with horror, and we hope that it ends soon and that all this bloodshed is over, and we understand that it hurts the courts. What we're and hold on for a moment. What we're going to do now, it's our webinar is over. Our speakers have been so patient and so wonderful to listen to all of the discussions. First, give us their words of wisdom about the importance of a judicial system which is independent, unbiased, and not influenced by the government or by the military, and what the aspirations are. And I hopefully the people who have been on this webinar have learned so much today. I've even learned so much today. I think this is an essential topic for every youth in the world to talk about, is the importance of a judiciary. If any of our speakers have any final comments, we'd like to do that. Then we want to release them, because they've been so patient and so wonderful to give us their time, their thoughts, and their guidance on independent judiciary, which I think is the key to many of the issues that young people face. I saw Dr. Reddy with his hand up.
Yeah, Sherry, I just want to say one thing, because especially in the countries like democratic countries, this judiciary is one of the most important pillar, like the legislature, executive, judiciary, and media. Unless these four organizations do not go in harmony, the country will not be protected, especially democratic countries. And especially, I was just saying to Mr. Azim, who has been very dare enough to say about the Pakistan. Now, that's for voice for the voiceless people. India, we've got a wonderful concept of public interest litigation. The people who can't afford to reach to the judiciary, can't afford to spend on this. Any person concerned about the downtrodden people at larger public interest, they can approach the courts in the public interest litigation. And this concept is wonderful. India is working out well. And that's what I want to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments and your participation. Would either of the other speakers like to make any closing remarks? Yes, Judge Rader.
Yes, Ms. Knowles, I just wanted to thank all who appeared. I'm aware that there was a risk in them speaking up as candidly as they did. I found their messages moving. We wish to help, and I hope there are ways we can contribute more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Just giving us your wisdom and listening to the views has been invaluable. So thank you for this time. And Judge Grisman, we'll give you the final word. And then I'll tell the youth who are on, you can stay on. I'm going to stay on. You can continue the conversation after this if you'd like to stay on. So Judge Grisman, you get the final word for today.
Thank you, Sherry. First of all, what a pleasure it was to be with my esteemed colleagues. And I'll leave, and I absolutely admire all these speakers for their courage and for their brilliance and the intellectual and way that they articulated their problems as they foresee them. So I'm just going to leave you with the words from John Acton, who was an historian and politician in Great Britain in the 1800s, I believe. He said, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." So it's the role of the independent judiciary to make sure that absolute power never corrupts absolutely. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your words of wisdom. Thank you for being part of the Kectil family. We appreciate all of your contributions and your willingness to come and help us. And I just want everyone on the phone to know the minute that I got in touch with each of these esteemed speakers, they said yes right away. They wanted to be part of it. So thank you so much for your contributions today. And I'll stay on for the rest of the people who are on the phone. Thank you. Okay, so now, Danarine, it's so good to see you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you so much, and we appreciate it. And we're sorry that we ran so far over, but I'm very interested to hear all your views. You still have a lot of people on the webinar, so please tell us about what's the landscape in Peru.
Of course. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Cheryl. So sorry for my voice. Today, I will do my colleague Ariana from Peru. Well, it's for me an honor to be able to share with you some critical points of my current situation in Peru, of the Peruvian situation, I think. I'm Danarine Mendita Vargas. I'm Peruvian and studying at Central Paris in political science. So, but despite the distance, I am aware for the situation. So, for entering the context, more than 60% of the Peruvian territory correspond to the Amazon jungle, an area that offers a diversity of natural recursions in Peru, as well as being the scene for many problems that affect the community in the area, as well as the Peruvian people as a whole. We can find several cases such as drug trafficking, human trafficking too, and expropriation of land for profit by companies that do not care about the environment or the communities which are located in this territory. A few days ago, news was revealed for more than 500 cases of sexual abuse of children by their teachers in the Awahun community. It was so horrible news, I think. And in the own words of the representative of this community, she told for all the Peruvian community that these cases started around 2010, and it is a scandal because the authorities, such as the Minister of Education, referring to these cases as cultural practices. So if you can imagine the situation, so horrible.
What does that mean? Yeah,
because
that's crazy.
They justify that this sexual harassment is in the statement of part of the cultural expression in this community, the cultural behaviors, but obviously the Peruvian population is agree with that point. And for more information, Ariana will speak more about that because she's Peruvian too. She's studying in sociology career, and she's from the Amazony. So I know she have more details about that. But it's just the context. But what's your question, Sheriff, for taking the next part, maybe?
Okay, absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you, Danarine. Thank you, everyone here to have me and to listen and to be interested in Peru. So I would like to start by saying that Peru's judiciary has faced significant challenges over the years, influenced by a history of political turbulence and corruption. I've been hearing all the information and all the experience of your countries, and I feel that this historical cause is on everyone's country. It's so important for us. And despite various reforms, the judiciary continues to grapple with issues of impartiality and integrity. Political interference and corruption have undermined public confidence in the judicial system in Peru, impacting its ability to function effectively and justly. In theory, Peru has three independent powers. So we have the executive power, the legislative power, and the judiciary power. This is all in theory because in reality, they are all mixed. And for example, our judiciary power is biased by different political issues and also some social and economic problems. So our judiciary has seen both positive and negative examples of judicial conduct. A notable negative example, well, in the past it was Fujimori era, but for example, right now, we have corruption scandals involving high-ranking judges that have further eroded public trust. Those are, for example, Patricia Benavides and Emma Benavides. These two women, who are sisters, by the way, they were all part of different judicial institutions in our country. And for example, Emma Benavides, she was the one that made that 41 people that were related to drugs and to international drugs in our that were in our country to be dismissed and and she set them free. So that's important. And also Patricia, she did many things as a prime judge here in our country. We can say that on the positive side, there were many efforts to reform the judiciary and enhance its independence, and that have shown some sort of promise in our country. Whatsoever, if we take the example given by Danarin of the Awanhun children in the Amazon, in the rapes case there, for example, right now, they only sanction 121 teachers, if we can call them teachers, by the way, while the other cases were dismissed. And all these cases of rapes started in 2010. And now, 14 years later, they are only in the public eye. And they were a total of 514 cases, I believe, and only 121 teachers were sanctioned. So that's important. And for instance, we can see here that the implementation of judicial reforms and the prosecution of corrupt judges indicates a commitment to improvement. Like, we can think that it indicates kind of an idea of commitment and improving the judicial integrity. But we have many reforms here, and it's also very important for us to, for all of you to know that we kind of feel that our institution is corrupted. By the way, we also have a cultural and social phrase that it says, "Don't the law, don't the snare." So it's something very critical for us to talk and to say. And for example, here we also it's been normalized, the vacancy of judges. So if judges are vacated and we don't have the stability of judges, so it's easier for the political and the executive power and the political powers to take the judiciary power. So that's something very important. So in fact, corruption and bias in the legal system can result in unfair treatment, limiting their access to justice and opportunities. For example, those cases, and also it's important to note that the place where the violation, where the rape happened, is a place where we can find the most drug plantations in our country. So it is very related. The drugs, also the community, how to say that, the native community, and the rapes and all these kind of scandals. And it's important to notice that in our country, we have a difficult thing when people need to approach to the judges and to the judiciary system because it is indeed unfair. It is unfair for them. You only have and receive a fair treatment if you can have one or political power or economic power, or even if you speak Spanish. In the case of these girls didn't speak Spanish.
They don't speak
So
Spanish.
this is something very, very critical for us.
That's important. That's important.
Okay.
Because they speak a
Yes.
different language in the Amazon.
Yes, in the Amazon there are 54 different languages, but
Yeah.
our judiciary system only speaks Spanish.
Yes. Okay. That's a really good point too. And the drug system, the fact that you have such a huge drug industry in Peru really shapes the corruption, doesn't it? Because they have to pay off the government and the military in order to get those drugs out of the country.
Well, it indeed shapes one part of the corruption. Could be in the north of our country, in the jungle, in the Amazon. Yes, but it's not only that. There are so many other things, not only drug related, but also related to mines, to, for example, in Madre de Dios, that is in the Amazon jungle, there are a lot of places where they go into mining, and there are also like illegal mining. So this also shapes all this space where corruption can be created and corruption can be made. So it's important for us to make this relation between our social issues, our economic issues, and all of our political corruption existing in our country.
Yes. And I know you have a very young president. I think he's 35 or 36 years old. And I think he came in saying he was going to get rid of corruption. How is that going?
Well, indeed, now we have a woman as a president. We've been having many
since I was there.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, that happened because we have our political institution is not as stable. It has different changes. For example, we've been changing presidents for the last 5 years, I think, Danaria. Yes.
I think I was there in February. I was just there in February, and there was a male who was president, and he's not president anymore.
No, in February, no, it was the women, because we have Dina Boluarte as president since 2022, I think. 2020, 23.
She started her period of government last year more than a year, I think. Yeah.
Yes,
she
2022.
In the power, and she represents the Peruvian community, but she's approved by the Peruvian people, so it's not a legitimacy government, I think.
Yeah. Who am I thinking of? There was a man who was giving a press conference at my hotel, and there was lots of military around because he was giving a press conference. I don't know.
No, she continues at the power.
Okay, so she's been.
In addition to this, I think for this kind of reason, for the lack of judiciary representation in these areas, many people decided to migrate to the capital, to Lima, because it's the best option for survive in the academic and professional ways, I think. And other kind of people, like in my case, decided to migrate or study abroad or going abroad because it's more security for people than in our countries. Especially in Peru, I think it's so difficult to be a woman because every day when I live there, I remember I feel insecure. I feel insecure. I couldn't go outside with myself. I decided to go with other person, or I think women consider that the politics or the youth are in our, they can't understand our position because the law in Peru, I think it's defending the aggressors, defending the people who commit this crime, but not defend the victims. In many cases, happen that from the Fujimori government, many cases where human rights are related. If the situation, yes, is so horrible, and that's the reason that many people believe that in Peru, it's that the establishment of the correct judiciary system is impossible because the corruption is established in the most
in the roots of
the
country. Yes, we believe that.
It is. Well, you can hear from all the stories you've heard from youth around the world. This is one of the big issues: is the lack of independent judiciary for one reason or another, and you just see a common thread through all of the countries, and it seems like this is something we really need to work on. And it's something that unites. It should be uniting youth all over the world. That this is a very important thing and essential for us to be talking about. But thank you for giving us the comments about from Peru. My goodness, we've had a very long 2.5 hour program here now. Maybe if everyone can get on video, we'll take a photo of this webinar with everyone on. Can everyone get on there and show up? And Nabila will help from you in just a moment. If everyone can get on, and then we'll take pictures. Take a picture. Okay. If you're able to, just get on your video just for a minute if you want to be in the picture. And then we may have to take a couple of pictures because we have so many people still on. I don't know, Ray, if you can put everybody in the same picture or if you take 3 pictures.
No, I can. I have to take a couple. Let's see.
Okay. Please get on. Okay, everybody say Kectil, big smile.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let me.
Perfect. Okay, wonderful. Now we have to go to the next screen because we have so many people, we can't get in one shot. But this is fantastic. You know how beautiful that picture is of youth all over the world. We love it.
Like, if you can snap it.
Okay.
Yep, I got it.
You've got the next one. Okay. If everybody can smile, let's get on the picture. Okay.
Yep, you can. Yeah.
Got it. Are you going to do one more? Or are we done?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay, we're good. Okay, wonderful. Okay, we have. I know that Nabila had her hand up, and where's Nabila?
Yeah, actually, we have Umerubab. She just wants to say something to.
Okay. Where is she? Okay. Let's hear from you.
May I speak
And tell
with the
us your
permission of
name,
your
your
lordship?
country. If you can give us your name, your country, what city, and where you are now, please.
I'm Umer Abab from Pakistan. Thank you for giving me opportunity to submit my petition. As my 3 family members were brutally murdered by the feudal lords of Pakistan. I'm seeking justice since last 7 years. I'm fighting all alone. 3 innocent people lost their lives, and I'm fighting with this system to. I'm fighting with this system. I want justice for my beloved family members. This is a high-profile case in Pakistan. I have tried all the. As I have raised the voice through all the channels and fighting with all the resources I have. It's been a decade. Still, this high-profile case is treated in this way. This is not a blind murder case. I knew the killers since day first. Even the court has framed charge on them. Still, I'm waiting for the justice because the killers are very influential feudal lords. They are members of parliament. They are enjoying their lives, and I'm suffering a lot. I'm fighting with this system just to I just want justice for my family members. This unnecessary delay. You know, I have attended almost 350 hearings before the honorable court. So this is a question mark on the judicial system of Pakistan. This is not only murder case against feudal lords in Sindh. Many innocent people have been killed. But I'm the only girl from Pakistan who has challenged them. I have serious life threats. They tried to hit my car. They want to stop me to speak against injustice. But I'm not afraid to speak against injustice. I'm here to request all of you, please be my voice.
So what happened? Why did they, what are the details? Why were they killed?
They killed my father, grandfather, and uncle because we raised voice for our rights. Unfortunately, in this 21st century, they are the feudal lords. You know, the feudalism and the capitalism, it is vanished from the other countries. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, we are facing the feudalism. My father raised voice for the rights. We have right to vote. We have right to live our lives. But the feudal lords didn't want to speak us for our rights. They always do this to the people of Pakistan, that we don't have right to vote. Therefore, they killed my father. My father was like a social activist. He was working for the right of people, but the feudal lords of Pakistan killed my 3 family members just to stop us for to not speak for our rights.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
I have written book. I have written book, namely Call of Revolution, Azan-e-Inqilab. I have.
And so and maybe Nabila can also give some facts. What exactly happened with this? What were they killed for?
Yeah, basically, Bab is fighting for the last 7 years for her father's murder case and uncle. Like, as she has mentioned, like 3 of her family members been